Hello and welcome, everyone. My name's Marsha, and I'm the head of partnerships at Kilimanjaro Consulting, and we are thrilled to have you join us today. Today, we're diving into a topic that affects countless growing businesses, which is why spreadsheets are no longer the right tool for managing inventory, and how a purpose built solution can transform your supply chain performance. And this brings us to Netstock. Netstock was founded in 2009 with a very clear mission. And this mission was to make world class inventory planning accessible to small and mid sized businesses. Since then, the company has grown into a global leader in inventory optimization, helping over 2,000 businesses across more than 70 countries take control of their inventory with smarter forecasting, replenishment, and planning tools. NetStock seamlessly integrates with Acumatica and Exo Business, and it delivers real time visibility, intelligent insights, and automation that spreadsheets simply can't provide. So, today, we'll explore why it's time to rethink that approach and how NetStock can help you take the next step towards smarter, more strategic inventory management. So, without wasting any more time, please join me in welcoming Carrie from NetStock. Over to you, Carrie.
Thank you so much, Masha. And thank you, obviously, everyone for joining us today. So, just a bit about my background. So, I am the APAC channel manager for Netstock. I have been within the supply chain realm my entire career and have been very fortunate to work with businesses in different states, whether it's distress all the way through to on the verge of growth or just general optimization requirements. And I met Netstock when they were in their infancy stage about 15 years ago, and I was managing a supply chain division for a multinational. And I've loved the concept of optimized, easy to use, cloud based inventory management platforms. So, today, what I really want to convey is I've had the pleasure or I've been very privileged to see a multitude of different environments. And what I mean by different environments, different industries, specifically focusing on their supply chain and highlighting inventory management. And I'd like to convey today what lessons I've learned, what's successful, what's not successful, so what the risks and the mitigants really are. And it all does come down to how data driven decision making can improve inventory in your business. We want to unlock strategies for reducing stockouts and excess inventory. And we want to show you where your business lies against industry benchmarks. So we do have a poll question that I would really appreciate everyone answering. And it's, do you still rely on spreadsheets for your inventory planning? It's just a yes or no. So 83% of you said yes, we do, and 17% says no. So I always like to come from a point of experience. And one of my favorite stories, I walked into one of my clients about 5 or 6 years ago, and they were telling me about how much phenomenal automation they'd done in their warehouse, and that they went from walkie-talkies and clipboards managing, the GRVs to highly sophisticated, automated environments. And I said to them, okay, this is amazing. Let's chat about your fill rates, your DAFOT. Let's have a look at how you plan inventory. And they said to me, oh, no, we're planning inventory still in spreadsheets. And I said, but the highest value on your balance sheet is inventory. And in fact, most clients that I've worked with, unless it's property, plant, and equipment or they're in the service industry, the highest value is inventory. That's where your cash is sitting. So not to maximize that area it's doing a complete disservice to your competitive advantage, how you're managing cash, time spent doing manual tasks. Anyway, I went back to this client and I said to them, let's see your spreadsheet. And I opened it up and I realized that there were three hidden tabs. There was no version control at all. And I said, who created the spreadsheet? And they said to me, well, it was some guy named Mark in marketing, and he was great, but he left. And I said, well, when did Mark leave? And they said about 10 years ago. And that is a frightening situation because they're planning in a spreadsheet that if someone clicks the wrong formula, if someone does any type of error, if there's, how are you agile in this type of market space if someone created the spreadsheet so long ago and they haven't updated it since? And spreadsheets are phenomenal. I've seen some incredible spreadsheets that are very sophisticated, but you still have the same issues. You're not going to be agile. You're not going to have the ability to work in real-time information. You're not taking advantage of forecasting algorithms that are not static. There is so much that we can show you, and I'd like to show you today. So I'm very passionate about this because most businesses fail from my viewings and my oversight because of management, number one. And this is across industry. Management's always the key factor and the dissemination of information and strategy. Number two would be cash flow, management of cash flow. And number three was inventory. And it's just incredibly sad to see very healthy businesses not invest in areas that are important. So we're going to talk about three aspects today. That would be inventory management and the difference between inventory management and inventory optimization and inventory control. So when we talk about inventory management, and we're very fortunate to work with Kilimanjaro Consulting, they've got an incredible base of knowledge. And of course, they're working with fantastic platforms. So why NetStock needs a good platform of information is it makes our system more effective and efficient. So what we would want you to have right now is an accurate reporting system. We want you to have historical data. You're probably working with a general min-max. You've got that system of record. You do have a certain level of inventory information and inbound and outbound orders. So more often than not, I work a lot with people that say to me, Carrie, I'm working with spreadsheets, I'm working with my ERP, but I'm just, I'm comfortable I it's okay. It's managed. And I always say to them, you know, this is the area that could supercharge your business. And NetStock, and I don't want to just speak about NetStock, I want to speak to you about general inventory optimization principles. But NetStock really does take your current situation, being ERP and spreadsheet. And as I said, we optimize. We are a ancillary platform that enhances the current system. So what are good inventory management principles in this day and age? And I talk about best practice, I talk about benchmark standards. This is something that you as a business should be doing if you've got inventory. And this isn't difficult. This isn't rocket science. It's available. It's specifically available in an optimized environment in the NetStock platform. And we're going to start number one with demand planning, one of my favorite topics. So demand planning is a crystal ball. So we want a system that is going to have effective forecasting methodologies to ensure that 80% of your forecasts do materialize. So what we do at NetStock is we've got 400 years of supply chain experience. We've self-developed our own algorithms, and you can see very quickly that we take previous historical trends, we pump it through our forecasting engine, and we automatically assign a best fit algorithm. So it's incredibly easy to use. In addition to that, we take into consideration any type of trends, whether that's promotional trends or just general calendar-based trends or monthly trends. And we also build in something that's very difficult in an Excel spreadsheet, and that's lost sales. And once again, I have seen so many times in my consulting career, people not taking into consideration lost sales, and they just are on this hamster wheel. We're always out of stock. We're always out of stock because they might have been out of stock for 20 days last month, and they're projecting based on a flat 3-month average. So you will never get out of that cycle unless you have the smarts to understand at location and item level what your out of stock days look like. And then you take that into consideration when predicting future forecasts. What we also do at NetStock is it's got to be an agile environment, meaning we need to be able to give to you the ability to easily increase or decrease forecasts, and whether that's at SKU level, whether that's at category level. Imagine the ability to have a person go, okay, well, a competitor's exited the market, a competitor's entered the market, and we need to reduce a certain segment. by 20%. So with the net stock, it's click of a button. You could pick the category, you can pick the salesperson, you can pick the location, you can pick the SKU, and you can very quickly adjust forecasts based on your ground level information. So it's an incredibly, as I said, agile and flexible system. And that's what you need in this geopolitical environment. You absolutely have to be flexible and adaptable to change. And I don't say that nonchalantly. If you do not have the ability to do that quickly with real time information, you are once again doing your company a disservice. Another thing that I really want to stress is the need for categorization of inventory. So, what do we do at NetStock? So, number one, we're going to provide you with a suggested order, a suggested transfer, a suggested works order, because we also build in bill of materials. But we're not only doing that, we're also going to show you what your inventory portfolio looks like so that you've got the ability to put in various policies, how you order inventory, how you stock inventory based on its contribution to your business. So over here, we very quickly categorize inventory based on either its contribution to margin, its contribution to cost of sales, and also how quickly it moves. So you can see anything in green. I always call it the good, bad, and ugly of your inventory. But green is solid inventory, good inventory. It's a sizable portion of your gross margin or your cost of sales, and it moves quickly. So once again, we talk about agility. Now we want to fill up containers. You're not going to fill them up with red box items, which are slow moving and low contributing towards your gross margin. You're going to fill it with very reasonable, so cheap product that's fast moving. And those are your gold box items. Your gold box are your outliers. You're either very cheap and slow moving and fast moving, or very expensive and slow moving. So that's what we do at NetStock is we're giving you the ability to understand your inventory profile. And we also profile like this for excess stock. So imagine looking at your excess stock, not just as a globular number, but how quickly it moves, how much it contributes. So when it comes to putting together excess reduction plans, this is click of a button. It's go into a location or go in holistically and look at your full stock holding, and let's understand what your excess looks like based on this Pareto. And this is something again that will optimize your offering. It will give you your competitive advantage. It will improve fill rates. Now we're doing exactly the same green box logic or Pareto logic, but now it comes down to stocking policy. How many times I've walked in and worked with a CEO who says to me, Carrie, I just don't understand. My stock is a mess. My fill rates are very low. My stock is high and I just can't get out of the cycle. So here at NetStock, what we do is we provide you the ability to stock profile and put in a stocking policy based on that stocking profile. So your AH products, for instance, those are your high contributing, high moving products should have your highest fill rate. Target fill rate should be high there. Your replenishment cycle, how often you replenish those goods, should be different and viewed differently from how you would replenish an AL product, which is extremely expensive and slow moving. And this is how we rebalance your inventory. So as I said at NetStock, we're suggesting what orders you're going to place on your supplier, what orders you're going to reconfigure between your sites if you do have multi sites, or you are on different continents or different locations. We can handle all of that. And we're also assisting with works orders. But in order to be able to optimize your working capital, we're going to adjust your stocking policy. And this is all done with our onboarding teams. We've got, as I said, 400 years of supply chain experience. If you agree to come over to NetStock and utilize us, we will take you on an onboarding journey. Another thing that we do at NetStock, which I've been an incredible fan of, because I was demand planning system agnostic during my consulting years. I've seen everything, and NetStock's IP sits in this, and that's how we measure risk. So I always say cash on a shelf in a warehouse is inventory on shelf in a warehouse is exactly like having piles of cash in a warehouse. And that's exactly how you should look at it. So if you've got safety stock, just in case stock, you should be investing in product, number one, that's benefit to your business. Secondly, where there's risk, where there's forecasting risk. So the deviations between the months in terms of your forecast are high. So it's a forecast that's very difficult to track. And where your suppliers DIFOT, delivered in full on time, or SAFOT, however you look at it, supplied in full on time, is something that's erratic. And that's what we do at Netstock. We look at every single product in every location and we design a risk profile around that. And that risk profile dictates the amount of safety stock you have. It's an incredible principle that I think everyone should use, but you cannot do this in an Excel-based environment. It just doesn't work. Another thing that I want to chat to you about is that dynamic safety stock. So you will have the ability to scenario map or scenario vet. And what that means is if you want a higher fill rate for a certain product or a certain category, we can actually predict what that will do to your possible safety stock levels. So once again, we talk about flexibility, we talk about agility. This is incredibly easy to use. And you can see the graphical display shows the curvatures. So the higher the fill rate, the more need for safety stock, the higher your inventory value. Your replenishment cycle, actually, there's an adverse relationship. So if you want to order more frequently, there's more risk that there's going to be issues with your deliveries and the need for less or more safety stock depending on what you do. And the same thing with lead time. Lead time, the longer the lead time, the higher the need for more safety stock. And we're doing this automatically. So you're not going to have any demand planners or people that maybe have risen through your ranks and haven't had exposure to global norms, which I see all the time. They are going to now have the ability to use these best practice processes within Netstock. Optimal safety stock levels. So what we do at Netstock is we're going to make sure that if you do have a stellar week or a stellar month from a sales perspective, or if the opposite would occur, that we will keep you in that ideal level. So when we talk about min and max, that's exactly what our system's doing, except we're not doing it on a monthly basis. We're having a look at your inventory every day, and it's automatically adjusting and keeping you within that perfect limit. Okay, so now when I speak about inventory optimization, we're talking about all these phenomenal concepts of dynamic safety stock and having a demand planning, agile demand planning with statistical methodologies that are automatically allocated. We're talking about a stocking policy and classifications and that risk measurement. And that should all be found in some sort of platform, whether you decide to go with Netstock or you decide to go elsewhere. Those are general best practices that you should have to be forecasting based on static 3-6 months, to have static safety stock levels, to not classify your goods. As I said, if you want to maximize working capital, and cash is king, we know how expensive it is. We know how tight your facilities are with your banks or your inventory financing teams. We know all this. We know how expensive the cost of inventory holding is, because it's not just about the capital outlay, it's your warehousing space, the amount of employees that now have to touch those goods and count those goods. I can speak at length about your actual inventory holding costs associated. The benefit of having inventory at the right place at the right time it's incredibly beneficial. So some other things that we're going to assist with at Netstock is, number one, we're going to suggest an order. And that order will be based on those forecasting algorithms that I spoke to you about that are auto best fitted. So you're not going to have people doing that. I always say an inventory platform should provide you with 80% automation. It should free up enough time so that because I've seen so many MDs, unfortunately, ordering off the back of post-its, and that is a true story. But we want to free up everyone's time so that they can do things that are going to benefit the company a lot more than manual order entry and order decisions. What you should be doing is you should be vetting those products with an erratic forecast or an oddity from a safety stock perspective, or a UOM. We bring in all units of measures, we bring in bombs. So this is click of a button, and we're going to tell you what you need to order today based on lead times, and all those nice other sophisticated supply and demand planning tools. We're also going to show you exception management. So we're going to show you what your inventory looks like today. We're going to show you what your excess is, your surplus orders. We've reduced huge amounts of working capital just by showing you where we would deem an order to be in surplus. So you can go ahead and cancel that. And we can also pull information from your ERP to say, this order is a surplus order and it hasn't been allocated to a vessel yet, so that your inventory planners very quickly can go in and start canceling and reducing your exposure to possible future excess. We're going to show you what your fill rate is. So when we talk about KPIs, I love talking about KPIs because these are going to be unemotional, measurable objectives that you can give your team. We're going to show you your fill rate. We're going to show you where you stocked out and potentially stocked out. And it's all a beautiful graphical view that you can filter to the nth degree. If you want to look at this, as I said, by location, by salesperson, by category, you can do so. And we show you the top 5 products, but you can drill in very quickly to see everything else. So NetStock is going to be a standalone platform, but we fully integrate within the MyHub environment via scripts, and we pull out information daily and sometimes for our clients twice a day. And you in turn can push your own information through if there's a major change you need to make. We're also going to give you excess redistribution. So straight off the bat, we're able to say, don't order from supplier. You've got X amount of stock in a location A, and we can redistribute that stock between the locations. And we've got the ability to say, don't consider Perth if we need it in Sydney. Logistically, it just doesn't make sense from a cost perspective. So there's a lot of intelligence brought in there as well. My favorite thing with NetStock is the ability to see what my 12 and up to 24 months view will look like. Now, during the demonstration of NetStock, we normally would set up a demo with you for about an hour and a half. It goes really quickly, but if you need to maximize the demo and say, Carrie, I need your sales engineers, please just to take 45 minutes or half an hour, we could do that. But it's an incredibly powerful system, and we want to show you, I call it the art of the possible. But what this projection module within NetStock will do is it will show you a time series based forecast of what your inventory might look like over the next 12 to 24 months, what your fill rates might look like over the next 12 to 24 months, your stock turns, your demand. So once again, from our consulting experience, you have people ordering against a forecast that hasn't been overlaid against your company budget, your sales budget. So you've got salespeople saying there's never enough inventory. You've got finance saying this, we don't have the cash to supply you with or to fund the inventory you're ordering. And you've got inventory or your planning teams just planning against their own budget. So an ancillary benefit of implementing a good demand planning system is sitting down with all your teams on an unemotional basis and saying, this is what our forecast based on these very smart methodologies look like. Do we agree or do we not agree? And if we don't agree, let's refine it. So let's not just go, oh, we'll pump everything up by 20%. Let's understand where our forecasting tool doesn't meet our sales budget. And once again, within our NetStock platform, we can very quickly do this. Another thing we're able to show you is what we'll be ordering from suppliers over the next 12 months. So imagine being able to show finance what we're planning, what type of working capital requirements we need, what facilities the banks would need to provide us in terms of the inventory financing side. And another thing we can do is we can break down this by supplier so we can actually give our suppliers over a phenomenal pipeline. So you can have discussions in terms of price breaks, bulk deals. We're going to give them information that they in turn can plan better against. So I always speak about the additional benefits of having a demand planning system like NetStock. It's not just about improving your business, but it does improve all your partners, both internal and external. Also, NetStock will be able to show you what you'll be receiving. So what your estimated arrival times will be like in each facility. So if you need to speak to your third-party logistics companies about maybe more space or locking in space so that you can get better pricing, or flexing up in terms of HR and equipment, the exposure or transparency of information within the system is one of the key advantages of bringing in NetStock. We spoke earlier about supplier performance and supplier relationships. We very quickly have a module that you can see by supplier, break that down into locations, break that down into products in terms of what your suppliers are actually providing you truly in terms of lead time and what ramifications not hitting that lead time is having on your business. Remember, the more erratic your deliveries relative to your planning lead time, the more safety stock. And this is click of a button. It's beautiful. We, like everyone else, is very pro AI. Now, you can imagine in our environment, you're working with so much data. So we don't just want to give you AI for the sake of giving you AI. We want to make sure it's targeted, directed messaging that's going to give your users the best benefit of the day. And that's what we've done. So we've created an opportunities engine that when someone logs into NetStock, they can say, okay, this is what I need to do today. This is what will benefit me. This is what the short, medium, long-term objectives are. And that's really where we've focused on AI. So we've got our, as I said, our opportunity engine, and we've also invested in, we've got so much information that we want to be able to click of a button, tell the user why you're in a position with for a certain product in a certain location and what they do need to do to remedy that. Now, after I've disclosed all of these best practices, what actually at the end of the day happens? So because we're fully integrated into MyOp, not in platform, I'm talking about information flow, we're able to make that suggestion from a purchase order, a works order, and a transfer order perspective. Once you've reviewed it in NetStock, it's click of a button, and then that will go directly back into your ERP and it will formulate that order, whether it's a supplier order or a transfer order or a works order. So a huge amount of time saved just within that area alone, and figure error concerns as well then get mitigated. So just a couple of insights. We work, as Masha said, with just under 3,000 brands globally. We've got about 600 within the ANZ region, and it's all managed within ANZ. So the ANZ region's allocated to the ANZ territory, where we've got our own sales engineers, our onboarding specialists, our support teams here. I'm based in Sydney. Our marketing team's also based in Sydney. So everything's done in region. And the reason why we do that is we all understand how important it is within the supply chain realm, specifically inventory, to know the lay of the land, the physical geographic landscape. And that's why we do it. So what we did is we went to about 2,400 SMB customers worldwide and about 300 NetStock users. And we hired or we mandated an external consulting house to do this, and they asked a couple of questions around inventory. And what the output of this survey was 56% was, well, they believed that 56% of the entities interviewed had insufficient forward planning, meaning that they weren't using algorithms around forecasting. They weren't taking into consideration supplier behaviors and forecasting behaviors. 15% were running incredibly lean. 5% were strategic buying decisions that were being made, and you couldn't really have a nice overview as to what the ramifications of these strategic decisions were. So yes, you're buying bulk deals, but imagine being able to import those bulk deals into a system like NetStock, run that projection module, and realize, oh my goodness, these bulk deals are going to actually tie us up for the next 15 months based on our current ratios. And 24% of the interviewees were overstocked. So what do we do at NetStock? So these are based on customer testimonials. We've got a whole host of case studies readily available on the NetStock website. We work with virtually every industry you can imagine, because inventory is I always said it's a global issue. Most people face the same things, but we do understand nuances in every single industry because we've onboarded them, and it's a phenomenal onboarding process. So generally speaking, we improve forecasting accuracy by up to 50%. Time reduction up to 70% because you're not doing things manually. Everything's automated with the NetStock, but you can manually override if you need to. we've got a 35% on average reduction in inventory holding. So when you talk about an ROI of a system, normally that ROI is satisfied within the first year and 15% improvement in fill rates. So we have tangible outcomes. So it's not just, well, it's a nice to have. Let's make this process a little bit cleaner. Let's implement the system because it's easier or more efficient. Not only do we provide efficiencies, but we are reducing your working capital. We're improving fill rates. And that forecasting accuracy, as I said, is something that just comes naturally because of our forecasting algorithms. But the ancillary benefits of being able to sit down as an emotional team and make sure everyone's flowing in the same direction, having better supplier relationships, having a projection module that you can put in various scenarios, run that projection module and understand, what comes out of that. So 5 top customer challenges before you come into a NetStock environment. And about 60% of our clients come from a manual environment, being Excel-based spreadsheets. It's so incredibly common that people are still using Excel for something that is the most important part of their business. But it's a reality, and that's what we're here to solve. So 72% people coming off of manual environments normally have lead time variability. 58% have long lead times. 54% of supply MOQs, 42%, there's a huge supplier cost issue. And then we've also got 19% with partial deliveries. And because we're pulling information out of your historical data, we're able to show you very quickly graphically what your partial deliveries look like, what your suppliers, what their DAFAT looks like. And when we order, we take into consideration supplier MOQs. And we also can build containers based on volumes, so stock volumes, and we can also build orders based on minimum order quantity.
Thanks, Kerry. We've got a few questions in the Q&A. Should we
Wonderful.
just quickly go through them?
Let's do it.
Okay. So the first one is, thank you, Kerry. Very interesting. Do you have any real estate clients that manage home builds and development programs?
Okay, so the best thing so to answer your question, we work with a lot of entities that will have various fixtures or various components that they use in homes. And absolutely, we can help with that because if there's a trend or any type of inventory to be found or tracked, then we fill that requirement. So it's not just, I don't just talk about, when I talk about inventory, I don't just talk about box dropping. We work with mining companies that just use us to manage spare parts. So as I said, anything that has a whether it's a utilized in a bill of material or utilized internally, utilized externally, we can assist.
Thanks for that. The next one's along the same theme. How easily and comprehensive does NetStock integrate with CRM systems? They're obviously using Dynamics 365 to plan when the homes are getting completed and are available to settle, for example.
Okay, so we are ERP agnostic. So we work with a multitude of different ERPs. So for us, we need a good base. We need a good base of information. So we directly integrate with 365. We directly integrate with Maya. We directly integrate within SAP and Sage. And in fact, the amount of clients when I was in an independent consulting realm that we removed very sophisticated systems and put in NetStock. I cannot tell you how many times I did that because NetStock's key. Never mind the fact that it's an incredible platform, but it's our onboarding and our retention rates are so high because we really do. I say we get into the client's detail. We make sure that the output is valuable, and that's how we're able to work really well with the client for many, many, many years. So to answer that question, it's a very simple process to be able to integrate to data sources in general.
Perfect. And if they wanted to look for more details on what that integration looks like, can they go on your website? And there's probably a link there that gives a bit more information on that. Yeah.
100%. But it's always good to work through your Kilimanjaro consultant either way. We've got readily available information, as I said, copious amounts of case studies on the website. But Kilimanjaro and NetStock's relationship goes back so many years. We've got such successful relationships with clients over those years. And the Kilimanjaro consultants understand NetStock backwards and forwards. So you can always ask your Kilimanjaro consultant that level of detail.
Amazing. Does NetStock easily ascertain the profitability by inventory or home type according to the detailed bill of materials?
Okay, so what we do is we pull information in order to work out your gross margin. So as long as your cost is there, both your cost and your selling price is accurate, we'll pull out that level of information. What we won't do is we don't pull through, let's say, your import costs. So we'll work off of a standard cost, and that standard cost in your ERP should take into consideration exchange rates times your physical cost of your goods plus your provisions plus your shipping rates. So we're not able to break that level of information down, but we absolutely look at standard cost and selling cost.
Nice. How does NetStock handle planning for purchase order line items that have a single promise date but are fulfilled in multiple as ready available shipments?
Yep. So what we do is we're going to plan, we're going to provide you with a anticipated or a suggested order by SKU by location. So ultimately, we plan at that level, but if we need to have an overarching value, so even though you're planning to have just a daft example, but this mouse, you're ordering 1,000 from your supplier, but you need it distributed, 10%, 10%, 10% throughout. We do that, and we still can have an overarching value that we need to adhere to. Value or volume.
Makes sense. Um, the next one is asking for can you share examples of measurable ROI or success metrics from current customers?
So we've got, as I said, all of our case studies online across multiple different ERP platforms, across multiple different industries. So our clients in general, just to state it again, have a 50% increase in forecasting accuracy, between low end of 25, 30% inventory reduction, all the way through to 40, 50, 60%. It really does depend on the current inventory holding and what they've purchased. We also have that 70% reduction in time. And we're able to upskill. I should have actually emphasized this. We're taking people and we're upskilling them naturally as to what is best practice. And we at NetStock will provide daily, weekly, and monthly tasks. And then that full rate increase is 15% on the lower end. And the availability of information. I mean, we talk about click of a button, transparency of information, and you can find it quick. And it's all based on information that came out of your system either last night or this morning. So spreadsheets, I mean, the amount of times I've worked on complex spreadsheets that are pulling information, maybe if we're lucky, a week ago, 2 weeks ago. Some of them are sophisticated, might be a couple of days ago, but we deal with live information.
And that makes sense. I think, as you said earlier, it's all about data driven decision making and insights, right? If you've got the data and really solid base, then you've got all the feature sets that can work on top of that. The next question is quite interesting. It says, is it complex to use and onboard? And what I would like, Kerry, is probably talk to this perhaps from also the angle if someone's using spreadsheets
Mhm.
currently, what does that journey look like for them? How can that be a stepped approach?
And as I said, we're very fortunate, and I say this because we're able to provide a return of investment because so many of our clients are coming off of a spreadsheet or just a native ERP environment. So that is what we're used to doing, and we've built an onboarding process around that. Now, the reason why I stayed in touch with NetStock is because, and I did state it earlier, that onboarding process is everything. Entrenchment is everything. You can have the most phenomenal, expensive system. Is that if it isn't onboarded well, it isn't maintained, that people are not touching base with you, that you aren't changing your policies regularly, then you're not going to use that system. And that's why I've taken out so many expensive, bespoke, and SAP-based environments because people just didn't know how to use it. The resources were so expensive to actually use that. And we're all about a very powerful system that is easy to use, that an MD can use it all the way through to an entry level planner can use it. Someone in the warehouse can have a look at it. That's where Netstock started. They started on an accessible platform to benefit businesses. So what we do is we're going to very quickly pull out your information from your ERP system. If you're working on a historical ERP system, and that's where the history is sitting, and maybe you've just moved into MyOb, then we can pull information from both sources. We can pull through historical information from other places as well. And our onboarding, you will be then assigned an onboarding specialist who knows your industry, and it's not a lengthy process. So normally we're up and running between 6 or 8 to 12 weeks. So it's relatively quick. And we do guide you in terms of what you need to do. Apart from that, we're building your business nuances into the business, into NetStock. So we don't, it's not just a plug and play, okay, off you go. This is too critical to your business. There's too much cash sitting in here for us to be nonchalant about it. We go through a testing process so that your users are validating the output, being our suggested orders or our statuses, and we build the policies with your employees as well. And it's all done in a nice project plan. It's an Asana-based trackable project plan. So everyone can see exactly where they stand. And another thing that's incredibly beneficial about NetStock, and I probably use that term countless times during this call, but you do not realize how important online training is, or online training methods and support. You take that for granted. So because we work across multiple different territories in the world, we always have someone available within all time zones. So if you do want to ask a question at some unearthly hour, you can do so. And we don't work off that red, green, or amber ticketing system. It's very much, we've got a consultant online, you can ask the question. We also have a data repository that you can ask the question and we'll give you sophisticated answers to that. Or you can speak to a human being, which in these days is rare. So as I said, easy. It's not an overnight, it's not a plug and play, but you should be up and running within 8-12 weeks.
Thanks, Carrie. The next question is from someone that's using both ProSpend and Acumatica. The question is, do you integrate with ProSpend and Acumatica?
So we absolutely integrate with an Acumatica. So there's no real need for us to integrate with ProSpend because that central repository will be Acumatica, and that would feed ProSpend obviously after we upload information.
The next question is, how does NetStock differentiate itself from the new and improved demand planning module that already exists in MYOB?
Very good question. Now, I'm very fortunate. I've got phenomenal relationships with MYOB Direct and obviously our partners. So MYOB or Acumatica is an incredible, incredible tool. Their core feature is not demand planning. And it suits a lot of clients, but we take that and, as I said, we super drive that or supersize that. So we are an advancement on top of that. My rule of thumb is that if you are holding more than $1 million worth of inventory, you should be moving to a more sophisticated demand planning environment because it's not the key function of an ERP to have a sophisticated demand planning engine on top of it. So what do we have? Number one, our algorithms are of a different level. Our safety stock algorithms are vastly different from just the min-max. Our transparency or our dashboard tracking from a surplus order perspective and excess order perspective is very different. And we also have that projection module and scenarios that we can add. And the one thing that MyOB doesn't have is that inventory policy by classification. So when I talk about super driving or supersizing, the current environment, that's what we do. Without MyOB, we're not going to have that base layer of detail, but we offer our clients a lot more optimization, supplier development, understanding what we'll be ordering for the next 12 months. It's just a very different tool.
Perfect. Thanks for that. And our last question is, what risks are the greatest in this economic geopolitical climate?
So I do a lot of webinars because I love this environment so much. I love inventory. I think you can do so much with it. I think it's incredibly under supported, under invested. I mean, the amount of times, as I said, I've worked with companies and they just don't realize how absolutely critical it is to have a in full, on time, best practice approach to inventory. So, what are the biggest risks now more than ever is people are advancing so much quicker. I mean, the amount of conferences that I've sat in where I look at this AI development and it's just insane what people could do. But if you don't have a good base, you're missing out. And that's exactly what we're doing at Netstock is we're giving you the ability to optimize your inventory so that you can use potentially that cash released elsewhere, or you can get yourself a competitive advantage from a full rate perspective. You can have that transparency of data so that you could go into really incredible, this new AI, this new agent world off of a much higher base than you're working off of right now. And we're upskilling your team and we're maximizing their time. We're releasing people's, day-to-day tasks within, that they're working on that's not adding benefit. They're not being strategic. So I think that's the biggest concern right now is people are falling behind a lot quicker than they ever would have, just because how quickly this world's working. And I'm not even talking about, as I said, the tariffs that are creating absolute upheaval and the cost of cash and the cost of living rates that are making people, that are commoditizing things more than ever so before. It's just the rate that people are working at.
Well put. I think that's it for questions. As Kerry mentioned, if there are any further questions or if you want to arrange introductions, opt in for a demo, please reach out to your Kilimanjaro account manager and we will help arrange these for you. We look forward to continuing these conversations. Thank you so much, Kerry, again, for your time today and have a good rest of your day, everyone.